The FDA just handed out one of its most coveted designations to a drug aimed at one of the deadliest, hardest to treat forms of pancreatic cancer. Olomorasib, an experimental pill from Eli Lilly also known by its codename LY3537982, has now earned Breakthrough Therapy designation as a standalone treatment for adult patients with advanced pancreatic cancer carrying a KRAS G12C mutation, specifically for patients whose disease has already progressed after at least one prior round of treatment. Lilly says the designation applies to patients identified through an FDA-approved diagnostic test, meaning doctors will need to actually test a patient's tumor to know if this drug is even an option for them. To understand why this matters, you need to understand just how brutal pancreatic cancer already is, and how this particular mutation makes things even worse. Roughly 95% of pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma cases carry some kind of KRAS mutation, but the G12C variant specifically is one of the rarer ones, showing up in only about 1 to 2% of cases. Rare does not mean easier to treat, though. Research has shown that patients with the G12C mutation actually have the shortest median overall survival of any major KRAS subtype in pancreatic cancer, only about 8 months from the start of first-line treatment, worse than other common variants like G12D or G12V.
This is Conference Hype. Stay with us, coverage continues.
Layer that on top of the fact that pancreatic cancer overall has a 5-year survival rate below 10%, one of the worst of any major cancer type, and you start to see why any new option for this specific patient population is a genuinely big deal. Jacob van Naarden, who leads Lilly's oncology business, put it plainly, saying pancreatic cancer remains exceptionally challenging to treat and pointing out just how limited the options are for patients with this mutation once their disease progresses. This is actually the second time Olomorasib has earned breakthrough therapy status. The first came earlier for a completely different use, pairing Olomorasib with the immunotherapy pembrolizumab, better known as Keytruda, as a first-line treatment for non-small cell lung cancer patients whose tumors are both KRAS G12C mutant and high in PD-L1. Now regulators are recognizing its potential in a second, much harder to treat cancer entirely. The data behind this new designation comes from a trial called LOXO-RAS 20001, a multi-center, open-label study that is testing Olomorasib across 4 different components, from early dose escalation work all the way through a full Phase 2 expansion, in patients with KRAS G12C mutant tumors of all kinds. The pancreatic cancer patients in this trial had already been treated before, had measurable disease by standard scan criteria, and had their G12C mutation confirmed either directly in tumor tissue or through a blood-based test looking for circulating tumor DNA. Beyond pancreatic cancer, the same trial is testing Olomorasib alone and in combination with other cancer drugs including pembrolizumab, cetuximab, pemidirxt, cisplatin and carboplatin, in colorectal, endometrial, ovarian and biliary tract cancers as well. Mechanistically, Olomorasib is an oral, selective, next-generation inhibitor of the KRAS G12C protein, engineered to lock onto its target with high potency, whether it's used alone or stacked with other therapies. Lilly is also running 2 separate Phase 3 trials in lung cancer, called SUNRAY-01 and SUNRAY-02, testing Olomorasib alongside pembrolizumab and standard chemotherapy or immunotherapy in earlier lines of treatment. This breakthrough designation also lands right in the middle of a broader wave of momentum against a gene that scientists spent decades calling essentially undruggable. Around the same time, the FDA separately accepted a new drug application for a rival pancreatic cancer treatment called daraxonrasib, which targets a broader range of RAS mutations. After a late-stage trial showed it improved both overall survival and progression-free survival in previously treated metastatic pancreatic cancer. Breakthrough therapy status does not guarantee Olomorasib will ultimately win approval, But it does mean the FDA will work more closely with Lilly to speed up development and review, a signal that regulators see real potential here for a group of patients who, until now, have had almost nowhere else to turn. That is the story of Olomorasib, earns FDA Breakthrough Therapy designation in KRAS G12C pancreatic cancer. Add your perspective in the comments, share this story with a colleague, and subscribe for the next Conference Hype narrative.